So in this video we are going to look at the trend line feature, how to compute a trend line in Excel. Okay, so to get to this point you probably should be familiar with the basic layout and how to drag and drop and input particular numbers into cells in Excel. You should also be able to input a particular formula perhaps, and you should be familiar with how to use the scatter plot feature of Excel. So those are the prerequisites to be able to start computing a trend line. Okay, so what you should do at this moment is to use these particular skills in your particular Excel window that you may have running to input this particular data. So we've got a particular set of X values and a particular set of Y values, and perhaps you could use drag and drop to create these particular values because we can see that they are separated by a step of 0.5, so each of these numbers is a step of 0.5 away from each other, and there's no particular pattern, I don't think, in these Y values, so you should probably just input these values by hand. Okay, so you should take a moment to do that. So if you have these table of values in Excel, we should probably go ahead and let's just create a plot of them. So we'll go ahead and highlight the values. We have only one set of X values, one set of Y values, so you can just highlight them all together. Let's go to a scatter plot, and we see that in general this plot looks rather linear. It looks like it wants to be a straight line, but it's a little bit kind of wobbly or whatever. So notice that these points all don't lie exactly on a line. These points are not all on a single line because the slope between the points is not the same. So we should probably double check that now. So if you notice that if I want to find the slope between this xy value and this xy value, that would be called the average rate of change. So if we look at the average rate of change, right, between these 2 points, it would be a formula 1.3 minus 1.1. I'm sorry, 1.3 minus 1 divided by, oops, sorry about that. Trying to put in a parentheses here. Parentheses divided by the change in the X values, so negative 1.5 minus a negative 2, which makes a positive 2. So if you compute that average rate of change, you get 0.6. So between these 2 points, there is a line of slope 0.6. But if you look at the average rate of change between these 2 points, you will get parentheses. Sorry. You will get 1.5 minus 1.3, right? Divided by, what are we going to have? Negative 1 plus 1.5. Okay, and the slope of the line between those 2 points is 0.4. I think you can see that that little line is going to be less sloped than the 0.6. So this data does not all lie on the same line because we have 2 slopes that are different. So we need to talk, and yet we can see that the data is kind of wants to look like a linear function. Okay, it's kind of trending up like a line, but it's not going to be on a single line. So there is a concept of a trend line, which is another way of saying the line of best fit. So Excel has a way, a built-in kind of formula generator to show you, okay, what line would best fit this data. So let me show you how to compute that now. You're going to click one of your data points, and it's going to highlight all of your data points. And you will right click one of those data points, and simply in Excel, in the Mac version of Excel, the add trend line is right there when you right click. It should also be there on the PC version. So if you just want to add a trend line, okay, here are the different options that you have available to you. You can create a linear trend line or a logarithmic or a polynomial or any of these other options. But since our data looks linear, we want to choose linear trend line. If you wanted it to be a power function, you could have clicked a power function trend line, but it looks like that didn't show up. So if you click linear and say OK, let me try that again. Right click, add a trend line, linear, okay. And then you want some options for this. So we can see that the computer fit a trend line, but it's not showing us what that formula is. So if you go under options, display the equation on the chart. Okay. Here would be the equation of that particular trend line. So this trend line for this particular data would be y is equal to 0.53667x plus 2.0333. Okay. Now, one important feature of this trend line, notice that this trend line, we're being given the answer to 4 decimal places. Okay, so it may be necessary, or you may have some reason to show a different number of decimal points. So let me show you how to change this very important option. Change the number of decimal places in the trend line formula. Okay, now since you're trying to change something about the trend line formula, you should probably just click it and then right click it, and you want to format the trend line label. So you want to format trend line label. Okay, so you got there by clicking the trend line, right clicking, format the trend line label, and you want this trend line, it's made up of a bunch of numbers. So if you click number, there is your option here. Notice that at the moment it's set to 2, and so our trend line formula changed to just 2 decimal places. If you wanted to be 3 decimal places, there would be 3. So if, for example, MyMathLab asks you to give the trend line formula or something to 3 decimal places, you may have to change these number of decimal places. If it wants it to 6 decimal places, there you go, you could just put 6 decimal places, and then you could record all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decimal places of your answer and put this into MyMathLab if that's what the question would be asking you for. So that's how you change the trend line formula, and that's pretty much all there is to the trend lines. It's a separate matter to figure out where does this trend line, this line of best fit, actually come from. That would be beyond the scope of this particular class. But needless to say that this formula that Excel gives you is essentially the line that is closest to all of the blue data points. So this is the line that best fits all of the data. This line may not actually go through any of your data. The line may not go exactly through any of your data, but it is the line that fits or is closest to all of the data points. So that would be all we have for this video, and that should be a pretty good introduction to Excel. If there's any further information that I think would be helpful, I will add videos in the future.